Some women become more modern with age, while others begin to look increasingly styled. And I don't think the difference is trends or money. I think it's the relationship they're having with themselves. I used to think women looked overdone because they wore too much jewelry, too much makeup, too many details competing for attention. But after working with women for decades, I've come to believe that excess isn't really the issue. Women rarely look overdone because of what they're wearing. They begin to look overdone when getting dressed becomes emotionally loaded, because there's a difference between expression and compensation, between wearing something because it delights you and wearing something because you're hoping it will reassure you. Many women quietly reach a point where style stops being fun and it starts to become a negotiation with age, visibility, relevance. And somewhere in that process, the outfit stops being the outfit and it becomes evidence, proof of something. And that's often where tension kicks in, to the point where you barely recognize yourself anymore. And in most cases, it has very little to do with age or clothes themselves. The issue sits deeper than that. Modern women tend to look modern because they're connected to themselves, to their bodies, to the reality of their lives, to the cultural moment they're actually living in. And I think this is where many women misunderstand modernity. Because yes, remaining visually current matters a lot. But being aesthetically current isn't the same as chasing trends. Aesthetics are the visual interpretations of an era. They shape how familiar pieces are cut, styled, proportioned, and worn. They form the visual language of a particular moment in time. Take blazers as an example. In the 90s, shoulders carried much more visual authority. In the 2000s, silhouettes became much more fitted and body conscious. Today's structure still exists, but it's expressed differently. The proportions have shifted, and so has the vibe. And every classic garment evolves alongside those shifts. Trend chasing operates differently. It often begins with external validation, a continuous search for what's current, approved, or culturally endorsed. The problem is that trends move too quickly to build an identity around. Aesthetic awareness is quieter, more observational, more enduring. It allows a woman to evolve visually without abandoning herself every season. And I think that's where style starts becoming intuitive. You stop following rules and you start developing perception. If there's one thing to sink in this entire video, let it be this. Okay, let me give you some examples. A loud necklace may make perfect sense because everything around it feels restrained. A wild skirt may work because something else is providing stability. A sharp blazer may feel balanced by softer hair and natural makeup. Not because these are rules, but because the eye instinctively looks for equilibrium. Good styling understands visual tension. It understands where intensity belongs and where restraint belongs, but equally. There may be days when the earrings and the bright lip feel right, because harmony isn't formulaic, it's contextual. The real skill is learning to recognize the difference between something that feels intentional and something that feels emotionally overworked. That discernment doesn't come from trend reports. It comes from attention, from repeatedly asking yourself what's actually working. Style becomes far more interesting when it stops being prescriptive and you start becoming perceptual. Women who remain visually current tend to notice subtle shifts. They adjust before the shift becomes obvious. Makeup evolves as the skin matures, hair softens, silhouettes adjust, jewelry becomes more personal. The visual language changes quietly. Ten years ago, highly polished dressing felt contemporary. Perfect blowouts, heavy contouring, very finished outfits. Today, modernity often feels more relaxed, less constructed. And women who remain current neither force nor reject that transition. They absorb it gradually because they're paying attention. That's why some women can wear nothing more than a shirt, jeans, and simple jewelry and still look unmistakably modern. Because minimalism isn't what creates modernity. Aesthetic relevance does. The proportions feel current, the styling feels current, the overall impression feels current. Nothing appears calculated, nothing is pleading for recognition. The woman simply appears present. And for me, women often begin looking visually unbalanced when they stop trusting their own perception. Instead of asking, do I genuinely love this? They begin asking, is this still in? Would my style guru approve of this? Does this make me look old? And that changes everything, because they're no longer dressing from connection. They're dressing from external cues, constantly seeking external approval. And I think that's a form of exhaustion many women quietly carry after 50. At a certain point, many women stop wanting more decoration. What they want is refinement, clarity, room, breathing room. They want clothes that support their lives rather than perform on their behalf. And I think this is why some women become more stylish with age, because they stop compensating, they stop adding in order to feel sufficient. And once that anxiety begins to dissolve, the entire process relaxes. Style becomes less strategic, less managed, and becomes more truthful. She remains curious about beauty, aesthetics, culture, and above all, herself. She continues evolving, but with discernment, and that creates a completely different energy around style. She stopped copying outfits and started mastering her own. I think that's the real distinction between looking modern and looking overdone. One emerges from connection to self. The other one emerges from compensation. And the visual difference is usually far more obvious than we realize. Let me know if this resonated. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Ciao, ciao, everyone.